Hi, today I have with me Brian of London, who's not in London. He's in
That's right.
he's north of Tel Aviv. He's about 55 miles from Trump. How are you today,
Yep.
Brian?
I'm good. I'm in North Tel Aviv. Yeah, Jerusalem is back that way. We're looking behind me is the sea. I suppose I'll pick the camera up later. Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
So I've been watching on the TV because getting near or in and out of Jerusalem today is a complete disaster. I mean, I don't think Americans know how small Israel is. And there is one road that sort of goes from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, one main road, and it's totally shut. And what's bizarre is that that's even when the president lands at the airport, gets in a helicopter and flies to Jerusalem, which is, I mean, it must take like 8 minutes or less.
Yeah. Puddle jumper, we call them. Okay, I've got to, people are going to say, what in the world is on his hat?
Yes, this is a great hat.
Show me.
Okay, so I'll tell you what this hat, I don't know if it's mirrored for you. I never know. It says, Build Israel Great Again. And this was made by the people out at something called Yesha Council. Yesha is Judea and Samaria. And that's the council that runs the area that is sometimes erroneously called by the name the Jordanians gave it, which was West Bank, West Bank of the Jordan River. It was the name they created in 1948 to avoid saying the word Judea, because they didn't want to say they just conquered Judea, because Judea got this word Jew in the middle of it. So they called it the West Bank. And anyway, that area, we call it Judea and Samaria. It's about 15 kilometers, 10, 12 miles that way, very close to me. And the sea is 2 kilometers that way. Okay. So I'm almost at the narrowest point of Israel. And they made this hat, one of the guys there, and I took this one off him, and he was trying to get more made, and I haven't heard yet whether he's had them made in time for the trip, but I love this hat. I was in Jerusalem, I was in the market, the Shuk, 2 days ago with someone, and I was stopped twice by packs of tourists to ask for photographs of me with this hat.
Perfect. I love that. Okay, and so I retweeted you this morning. You had a guy on your Twitter timeline, Seth, who is...
Seth. He's the op-ed of the Jerusalem Post.
Right.
And he was standing, I think he was standing outside, it was either the Dung Gate. Funnily enough, okay, bit of Jerusalem for you. The nearest gate in the city walls to what we call the Kotel, which is the Western Wall, and that big plaza where Trump was just an hour ago, that's called the Dung Gate. Dung, yes, as in animal manure. And there used to be a lot of leather making going on there, and that involves this dung, and so that was the Dung Gate. And that's, if you want the quickest way to the Kotel from outside of the walls of Jerusalem, is through the Dung Gate. Sorry, nothing you can do about it. I tend to walk through the Jaffa Gate. Sounds better, makes you think of oranges, but it's a longer walk.
I gotcha. Okay, so you're in Israel. What is the local coverage like?
Blanket, actually. Both, I mean, there are two main television channels, and they've just erased all programming since like 9 o'clock this morning. Okay. I had it on in my office. I came home. It's been on. Both of them are just Trump, 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 Trump. From the moment he landed, well, from like 3 hours before he landed, including, and I caught this out of the corner of my eye. I don't know if this made it onto the international feeds. I saw drone footage of Air Force One from above. I've got to find this footage later. Yeah. And it was like, you knew it was drone footage because it was 4x3 and it had the numbers, you know, the like, the sort of secret numbers that nobody knows what they mean. And it was obviously one of our military drones was looking down on Air Force One flying underneath it.
That's amazing. Well, I was going to say that Seth's video had Make America Great Again flags with Trump's name on it flying in front of the Western Wall.
Listen, as much as, he can go to Saudi Arabia and he can pretend that they like him, but the depth of feeling, of positive feeling toward America from regular Israelis is hard for you to understand. We really, I was born in South Africa, grew up in Britain, moved here 8 years ago, but I'm an Israeli. And all Israelis know that today, and it wasn't always this way, today, the only nation in the world that's really got our back most of the time, except for the last 8 years, is America. Mm-hmm. Now, that doesn't mean we expect or we want or we would think that America would send people, actual soldiers to fight alongside us. We don't really ask for that. Mm-hmm. But just don't stop us arming ourselves. Yeah. That's the limit of what we demand. Because in the past, in history, in Israel's very short 69-year history, we've had huge trouble getting armaments. Yeah. Which is why we've got our own armaments industry that leads the world. Mm-hmm. But we don't want to be. We want to be indigenous. We are indigenous. We've returned home. What does that mean? It means Judaism was birthed here. I'm just going to keep talking. I won't let you get a word in edgeways on your own show. So Ivanka Trump was crying visibly at the Western Wall. Why? Okay, she's a convert to Judaism, but converting to Judaism is so difficult. And it's I find it a very peculiar choice. We're the most persecuted people on earth in history. Yeah. I mean, nobody has been around as long as we have, been through as many different persecutions up until, the most grotesque persecution ever. But we're still here. We're still Jews. We know what Judaism is. Why are we still here? And then why does anybody want to join that club? I have a huge respect for converts because of this. So she goes to the Western Wall, which is not the holiest site in Judaism. The New York Times regularly prints that lie, and then people like me and others send them letters and they correct it. It's not the holiest site in Judaism. It is the holiest site we are allowed to pray at, even today. Up above the Western Wall is Har Habayit, the Temple Mount, where Al-Aqsa Mosque sits, and some other sites. That marks the holiest spot. But we can't pray there. If you go up there as a Jew today, and you silently, under your breath, move your lips and say, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, this is a crime. The Jordanian Waqf who are up there, if they see you doing this, will actually come and grab you. They may arrest you or they may just throw you out. Oh, gee. And this is something we brought on ourselves. I mean, this is an internal dispute now in Israel. Why did we do that? Yeah. But you'll also notice that's why, Trump's not going up there. Why? He was in Saudi Arabia. He didn't go to the holiest site or the second holiest site in Islam. No, he went to Riyadh, which is nothing. It's just a bunch of skyscrapers in the desert built by money that we gave them in return for oil, and then we helped them build skyscrapers. No, he didn't go to Mecca or Medina because he's banned from there. His filthy feet aren't allowed to defile it. But he can go to the Western Wall. We want him to go to the Western Wall. We love that he went to the Western Wall. I'm like, forget all this State Department nonsense. Is it in Israel? Is it not? It's in Israel. I think that Trump has a 5-year plan or 4-year plan. I'm kind of a bit like Bill in that respect. I think you got to look at the long picture. I think Trump's mind works in timescales divided up by how long it takes to build a massive building. So I think the speech that he just gave in Riyadh, I think that that's the start of something like a 5-year change. And the change has to be at Foggy Bottom with the State Department. And it has to be in America, getting Americans to understand what Islam is. And the same thing with recognizing that Jerusalem is the undivided capital of Israel, moving the embassy. Those things, I don't mind if that doesn't happen tomorrow. Right. I'm fine with that. Right. But I mean, there's so much to tell you. For example, the BBC will always say Arab East Jerusalem. That's their standard line talking. They will say this thing happened in Arab East Jerusalem. Do you know why half of Jerusalem had no Jews in it. Do you know why?
No.
Until 1967. Well, in 1948, we fought a war here. We said we'd like Israel. There was a partition. The UN said, here, Arabs have this bit, Jews have this bit. Jews said, okay, we'll take that. Arabs said, no, have a war. And we had a war. And during the war, we couldn't hold on to all of Jerusalem. It was an unbelievable fight with women and children literally Jewish women and children fighting to defend their homes that they'd lived in for sometimes millennia. You know the Ruth, what's her name? The sex therapist.
Oh, I know. I remember Ruth.
You know her, Ruth.
Yes.
Do you know what she did? She was a sniper. You have no idea of this because this is not well known. She was a sniper. You can look up videos of her talking about this. She was a sniper in that battle for Jerusalem. She lay on the walls shooting at Arabs. I'm not joking. Ruth Westheimer, Dr.
Ruth Westheimer.
Dr. Ruth Westheimer. She was a sniper in that war, and she'll tell you that. And she was very young, and there were younger children bringing the ammunition to keep, but we couldn't hold it. So we lost half of Jerusalem. The Arab Jordanian army moved in, which had been trained by the British, and it took half the city. It took all of the old city, up to the city walls, and they threw all the Jews out. They killed some. They destroyed all the synagogues. Literally destroyed. They destroyed a great deal of the graves on the Mount of Olives. They just wrecked the place, and they threw all the Jews out. And that was the first time in memory, or in history, really, there had been no Jews in that part of Jerusalem. So when the BBC today says Arab East Jerusalem, and when they complain that Jews are moving back into Arab East Jerusalem, it's because of an ethnic cleansing of Jews in 1948. And so to say that the old city is not Israel and the old city is not Jewish, there's a tunnel, that part of the wall that you see. Everybody listening has to come to Jerusalem. You have to. It's your duty. You know you all want to.
Yes.
That bit of the wall that you see is a fraction of the wall. It's about I think it's about a fifth in length. And what happens is the wall carries on off to the left, but it's been the city has risen up, and there are tunnels now that were dug. And you can walk into the tunnels and down to the level of the bottom of that wall. And then you walk into the hill and you get basically to the stones that are 2,000 years old, that are Jesus era. And you walk on those stones and you're in a tunnel and you see the wall, which is 3 times higher than what you see on television.
Isn't that something? I know Trump will love that.
There is, if you want a wall, that's a wall.
That's a wall. I have actually been there, Brian. I stuck a prayer in it back in 1984, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
In a little just after Lebanon.
I don't know if they let people still do that, but on a little piece of paper, you got to put it in.
Yeah, and you know what? Those are all then every few days they go and collect them all, and they don't just throw them away. They carefully, I can't remember where they put them, but
I didn't know they kept them. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah, because the volume of this is quite amazing. Rabbis go and take them, and they're dealt with reverentially.
That's nice.
And I mean, this is the thing: we welcome people to come see what is important to us. I mean, what it means to have a guy like Trump here, I personally think that he knows. Without knowing details, he's not a detailed guy. He has a feeling of who we are and why we're here. And what it means when he comes here and he flies with a helicopter, what I believe he'll have seen is he won't have been ready for how built this place is, how we have built it, how many buildings we have, how the buildings match the scenery. So in Jerusalem, it's all built from Jerusalem stone.
Yes, it's beautiful.
We don't allow ridiculous-looking buildings to mess it up. We keep it looking right. And Jerusalem has got. I come from England. We had some old stuff in England. There's a story I know of one of the colleges in Oxford, and American comes to the front gate and asks the porter at the front, excuse me, how old is this building? Is this pre-war? And the Oxford porter says, this building is pre-America. Well, there's old stuff from the 1500s and so on in Britain, but Jerusalem is 3,000, 4,000 years old.
Right.
And it's real.
There's olive trees there that are older than America.
Easily.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing. And so, I never say Israel was created in 1948. It wasn't. It was recreated or reborn because we've been here all this time. The genesis of who we are as a people is in Israel. We eat food that's in the Torah, in the Bible, the names of which, and it's just right that the seasons match our calendar. We have our own calendar. This is something that it's hard for me to explain to Jews outside who haven't made the move and come back here. I'm not very religious. I'm not really observant. I'm less observant than Ivanka, for example, probably. But because I'm in this country, the calendar, the timetable of the year drives me to observe things that I wouldn't have done outside. And it gives my children a Jewishness that just comes from being here, that you absorb. And that matters. We've been persecuted and pushed out of the world, but we're not. The way is not to think of ourselves as victims. We are survivors. We survived, and now we're thriving. And that's what Israel represents. And I hope that Trump gets that view. And he knows. I mean, it was funny watching him with Rivlin, our president, which is a largely ceremonial role. I have political issues with him, stuff he says sometimes. But Trump chided him. Trump got to the bits. Trump said what the trade deficit is, and we sell more to America than we buy from America, and so Trump, of course, wants to turn that around. But the point is that we're on an even level. We're more than even on high tech, on industrial stuff. I drive my car's got Mobileye in it that tells me if a pedestrian just stepped out in front of me. That's Israeli, just bought by Intel for billions of dollars.
And your surveillance is like #1 in the world, something like that?
Yeah.
You guys are high tech.
When you do build that wall, it's going to be Israeli contractors all over it doing the high tech stuff. Because, I mean, we've got a great... Now, the wall to the Judea-Samaria, West Bank, that's very complicated. It's not a solid wall. Americans don't really understand what we've done there. We don't understand some of it. It's not contiguous. The whole thing is a total mess, to be honest. But on our southern border, on our border with Egypt, we did build a massive fence. It's mostly a fence. I don't think there's any wall component, but it's super high tech. I mean, and it knows the difference between animals and people and all of this stuff. And I think, we had hundreds or even 1,000 people crossing it the year before it was finished. And it's dropped, I think, 6 last year, came across it. 6. Yeah. I mean, they do have to cross Sinai in Egypt first, but they were doing that, and now they're not. And ISIS are the other side of that fence, because ISIS are running rampant in Sinai. Egypt are trying to control them. Right. So, but I tell you what, security and terrorism does not define this place. That's for sure. It's just something we've learned to deal with. I wish the rest of the world wouldn't learn to deal with it, wouldn't have to learn, but you're going to. You're going to see these car attacks because they're easy, and random knife attacks. But, we've dealt with that. We've got our armed populace. I don't have a gun, unfortunately. I'm not allowed to, but if I did, I would. Again, that doesn't define who we are. We are about building this country back to what it should be, and progress, human thriving. I think we do that, and this is a bit of the other thing. 20% of our population is Arabs. That's within borders of Israel that everybody recognizes. 20%, largely very, very happy to be here. In fact, more optimistic than the Jews in some respects. There was a survey like 2-3 weeks ago, and they asked, are you optimistic about the future? And the Arabs came out more optimistic, and I know why. I'm sure I know why. I mean, they didn't get to this in the survey, but the Jews, you ask them, and firstly, they're always complaining. The American ones are looking at Target and Walmart and wishing they had those here, and we can't get Amazon deliveries, and everything's expensive. That's what the Jews are whining about. The Arabs are looking at Syria, and they're saying, we like it here. Not only are we not being killed in the streets, mortar bombed, crucified by ISIS, but we've actually got a decent healthcare system that's largely free at the point of delivery. What more do you want?
Yeah.
And so that, there is a model here. Get a question in. Come on.
No, I just no, it's terrific. I'm so glad to hear about that survey. I do want to hear how is the mood changed? I know that whenever a president of the United States comes to Israel, it's going to get wall-to-wall coverage. It's a big deal. But is there a difference this time? Is there a mood change?
Definitely.
Okay, so tell me about that.
This guy is obviously different to Obama. And the Iran stuff, look, it's real for us here, okay? I'm on a balcony here. In 2014, that's 2.5 years ago, I stood on this balcony, I looked up into the sky behind me, and I can send you the YouTube videos, and I watched Iron Dome intercept real, deadly Grad rockets that had been fired from Gaza, okay? And I watched the interceptions because I'm on the edge of Tel Aviv and another neighborhood, so sometimes the alarms are ringing like 2 neighborhoods to the south, and it's technically safe. We're very... It's an amazing system. They predict where the rocket is generally going to fall, and then they only turn the alarms on in those areas. You don't ring the whole alarm for the entire country for one rocket. In those circumstances, a couple of times I stood out here and I watched the Iron Dome interceptor missile, this sort of bright dot, and they zigzag like crazy. I mean, it doesn't just go up like this. It is chasing that incoming thing. And then when it hits it, you just see this little flash. And then seconds later, like thunder coming in after the lightning, boom. And if the alarm is going in my area, I'm in my bomb shelter, which is in my apartment. This is real. And Iran has real stuff. I mean, what they've got in Gaza is a joke compared to what Hezbollah in Lebanon and what the Iranian ICBMs can do. And if Iran really had that nuclear bomb, we can't take the risk, because mutually assured destruction, which kept America and Russia largely safe, I don't think that works with people who send their children. No. They send like 15-year-old girls with a kitchen knife to stab a soldier who's carrying a rifle, a big rifle. That mentality, armed with nuclear weapons, we can't do that. So, and Obama definitely, we didn't trust him. That Iran deal was a disaster. He lined up, Ben Rhodes, the New York Times, they all fought for this. And Trump is now talking like he's going to undo it. And I think that made the Saudis happy. It makes us happy. And just his whole demeanor. I can see it. He knows who we are. He knows why we're here. We are Israelis. We're real. We've existed here for thousands of years. The Arabs who call themselves Palestinians today, it's a made-up identity. If they were pleasant to us, then there's something called rights of long-standing presence, which we would be happy to grant to them, and which we have with our own Arab populations. But if you keep trying to kill us, we can't live like that. No. It really is. I mean,
it's so common sense.
You'd think. And I spend all my time, fighting the lies of the New York Times. That's why I write a lot. I do social media and stuff for Israel. It's unrelenting, and the people that they send to cover us here, the journalists, there are so many of them are just so rampantly biased before they get here.
Yeah.
And they get latched onto by these NGOs with European money to spend, who I was in Hebron, which is, Hebron's amazing, but we're not allowed to have it, apparently. Hebron is where Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac are buried. Sarah is buried there, and the transaction to buy her plot of land to bury her on is probably the oldest recorded transaction, property transaction. And the guy wanted to give it to Abraham for free. He said, no, I've got to pay for it. So he paid for it, and this is it. And it was expensive. But think about it. That's the foundation of our civilization. The idea that you have ownership, private property, you can build something yourself and it's yours. You can buy something and it's yours, and the government is just hopefully out of the way, or at best just mediates the sale. That is in Hebron, and it's a pain in the ass to get there because of security checkpoints. But why? Why should Jews not be allowed to go there? What's wrong with us? We have to assert ourselves a little bit more, I think. What I feel, what I don't think is that tomorrow he's going to say, we're moving the embassy, it's all yours, do what you want. But slowly, he's, I think, laying traps for the Palestinians, traps for the other Arabs, traps for Muslims. Okay. He's set them a very high bar. He says, look, he laid out yesterday 2 sides, evil and good, good and evil. Which side are you on? I mean, it's better even than Bush's, are you with us or are you against us?
Yes.
That's what he said yesterday. And he said some other stuff. He said, firstly, and I put out a video earlier, it's very interesting. Written in the script, it said Islamist terror and Islamist Islamist, I can't remember. Ideology? It said Islamist twice.
Was it
Islamist? No, that appeared elsewhere. Islamist extremists and Islamist terror. That was written in the prepared notes. When he got to that bit on the teleprompter, he paused, said Islamic terrorists and Islamists and Islamic extremists. On the fly, probably in direct contravention of what Foggy Bottom and the State Department told him to do, he switched Islamist for Islamic. And I hear the BBC raving about his speech as if it was some kind of reset on the old Trump. No, it wasn't. I think he rebelled about as much as it's possible to do standing there in Saudi Arabia. And look, Jews here, Israelis, we've had a long internal fight amongst ourselves to not recognize that this is Islamic jihad to get rid of us. We've tried Land for Peace. And if you know Islamic jihad, you know Land for Peace isn't going to work. They will take whatever you will give, they will not say thank you, and then they will start working on taking the next bit. That's what's happened each time. We gave back Sinai. We've had peace with Egypt, but ISIS are moving in there. We took bits of Lebanon, we gave it back. None of it works. We've got Hezbollah on our border with massive rockets. Syria is a complete mess. I mean, there are still people. The UN is still technically saying we should give back the Golan Heights, which produces some great wine. And right now, if we were to hand it to anyone, it would be ISIS.
Oh.
Can you believe that there is actual international pressure on us sometimes to give land to technically the failed state of Syria, but it would just become Islamic State? I mean, how dumb do you have to be? And it's great wine. I mean, I can't explain to you how good the wine up there is.
I doubt the ISIS guys would keep up the vineyards.
No. We can't give them the vineyards. I mean, we'd make great wine all over the place. That's what we do. We make great wine. You know, we farm pork here. This is a funny thing. There's Christians who've got pork farms, but there is a rule about not having them touch the ground. So they build like a little structure and they live. It's totally mad, but yes.
Wait, the pigs don't touch the ground?
Correct. Yeah. They are flying pigs. I mean, they're perpetually flying pigs.
Are they just walking around on decks?
They built a deck. Yeah, the pigs are kept on decks. Apparently, it's very nice and it's quite. But yeah, and that's the halachic.
And the reason for this is just
because there are some. Look, mostly we don't care what Jews do. Mm-hmm. This is Judaism, actually. We don't go anywhere and impose our Judaism on anyone else. But in Israel, we have a few more. We've got a few more laws of Jewishness. You can't come here and proselytize for Christianity. We actually have a law against that. I don't think anybody's ever been convicted or let alone even charged. But it's technically there. I don't think we need it, but you know what? It's our home.
Yeah.
You
set the rules, your house, your rules.
We can set the rules, and it's not it's not a terribly hard thing, I would think. But that doesn't stop millions of Christians flying in here every year and dunking themselves in the Jordan River and having an amazing time. Because you do. I see people all the time. Every time I'm in Jerusalem, especially, and I stop people. I ask them, "Why are you here? Where did you come from? Nigeria, Philippines, Singapore, all over." And I ask them, "What was special for you?" And you get so many great answers. And I got this one great answer from a big, can I say, black woman?
Sure.
They're from England. Big, South London. Jamaica, came over to England from Jamaica in the 50s or the 60s. And she says, "The trees, I love the trees." Because then she explained to me how the trees so closely matched the description in the Bible. And she said she just knew that those trees were the exact ones that Jesus had seen. That's what did it for her.
It's different for everyone.
Of course.
For me, it was the Sea of Galilee.
Yeah.
I just looked at it and went, it just stopped me in my tracks. I just couldn't believe I was seeing it. I'd heard about it for years, and there it is. It's just different for everybody. The Western Wall, though, I understand Ivanka's emotion on that. I had a similar experience there, too. It just choked me up. I'm not sure why, just a well of emotion. And even watching Trump do it today, I lost it.
With Trump, I just don't get the impression that it's a photo op.
No.
I don't get. I've said this all the way. I followed Trump from the beginning. My wife said put money on him when he came down the escalator. I didn't.
Smart woman.
Until May. I waited until May.
You're married to a smart woman.
Yeah. She said really early on that he was going to do this. Yeah. I did make money in the end, but not as much as I'd have made at the escalator. But I've had this feeling all along with him that this is not personal gain. This is about giving something back to his country. I do believe him. And so when he comes to Israel, and also this stuff about doing the deal, I'm in business. I'll tell you the most important lesson I've learned about deals is which ones not to do. And it's also in Art of the Deal. It's like walk away. There are some deals you cannot do. It is not in Israel or the Jews or America's hands to have peace with Islam. It isn't. It's on the other side.
Right.
The best we can hope for with the Islam as it is today is a hudna, which is a temporary ceasefire, and the temporary ceasefire lasts as long as the Muslims do not feel strong enough to hit us. So the only way you get peace, it's not the peace that you have between America and Canada, where somewhere in a dusty drawer there is a plan of what to do if the Canadians invade, but nobody in the Pentagon has updated it for 30 years because it's just largely not going to happen. Trudeau, can you imagine? But we can't have that peace with any Arab country. We will always have walls, we will always have guns, we will always have the best, because we have to appear to be strong. And what happened through Oslo, through the 90s, we dropped our appearance of strength. And as soon as we dropped our appearance of strength, they raised their aggressiveness. If we're strong again, they will be quiet. Same will happen with Saudi Arabia. Same even will happen with Iran. They will be quiet if we are very strong, and they know we're strong.
Yeah.
And that's peace. That's the peace that we can have with Islam, but it's not the Western definition of peace. We're in the Middle East now.
Yeah.
Americans need to understand, even and especially, oh my God, especially liberal left-wing Jews in America. I apologize for them on behalf of, I'm sorry. They don't get it. They don't know what Israel is. They don't understand our fights here.
Yeah, they have always confused me. Just as an American looking at them, I'm like, what the heck?
What are you doing?
Nobody understands them.
Yeah.
So other than they're liberals first and Jews second. That's the only thing that makes sense.
It's a religion. It's the religion, the God of impossible equality, and all of the other liberal stuff that goes with that. Yeah. And what America has to do is strongly reject that. Be conservative. Be who you are, which is this unbelievable nation of freedoms. But you can't tolerate the intolerance, and you can't tolerate people, coming there, using your legal system to tie you in knots. You've got to declare Islam to be a political organization, as it is in America. You've got to see this stuff happening. I hope Sessions is up to the job. I think a lot of this lies between Sessions and Trump. I tell you, that Saudi Arabia thing is going to be quite funny, because what are they going to say at the next meeting of the Ninth Circuit Court? That he's anti-Islam? Look at the reception he received in Saudi Arabia.
I know. It was amazing.
And they've already argued that his perfectly legitimate and fantastic document that says we don't want people in our country who have an alien ideology that hates us. They've argued that the document is fine, but because of things he said on the campaign trail, it's not. Now he's been to Saudi Arabia, and he said all of these things to the Saudis to their face, and they seem okay with it. Can we just, let the president now run the country like he's supposed to?
Yeah. I don't think they want to. I think you know the answer to that question, but
hopefully this is the hill that the Ninth Circuit Court dies on. I mean,
I hope so. I hope they bust that thing up. It's long overdue. Territory's way too big. It's backlogged more than any other circuit. It's time. Just logistically, it's time. So absolutely. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us about the visit, the impact it's having? A little bit more about
tomorrow's the big. He's going to give a speech at the Israel Museum, which is the iconic museum that's got a sort of a kind of funny scroll-shaped roof. It's got the roof, the white roof with water spraying on it, which is in the shape of the top of the pots that the Dead Sea Scrolls were found in.
Okay.
And it houses inside that building parts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which even my lousy ability to read Hebrew, I can look at those scrolls on display and recognize phrases from the Tanakh. They're clearly the right. Anyway, he's giving a speech there. That speech, we wait and see. I'm largely hopeful for it. It just depends. To me, it all depends on how much was written by State Department, how much was written by Bannon, how much was written by Gorka, and how much is reinterpreted by Trump on the fly. That's what we're looking forward to. And he's staying at the King David Hotel, which is an amazing hotel. They've cleared it, which is just obscene, but that's how your guy travels. They've cleared this massive hotel for him. Next time I'm in Jerusalem, I will go to the hotel, and there'll be I don't know how long it will take them, but on the floor are the signatures of all the presidents.
Okay.
And everybody who's ever visited, every rock star you can imagine.
That's fun.
And they sign the floor, and as soon as within a couple of weeks, they'll have made that into a tile, and it'll be on the floor, and I'll go find it.
We would love a picture of that for sure. So by clearing the hotel, you mean that no other guests are staying there?
No other guests. Okay. Total. And I think they cleared it a week ago because, they've got to bomb sniff every room.
And clean it with toothbrushes too.
I mean, some of how he travels does appear to be, but I love it. I love the fact that 2 747s landed and we don't know, you're not supposed to know which one is which. I mean, it is a little bit extravagant, but I like it. I think you Americans should be proud of this. And somebody somewhere will be saying it's too much and he spends too much on travel and all this rubbish. No, be who you are. Be the greatest nation on earth in terms of stature. Okay, we're a great nation here in terms of all sorts of other things. But be big, be bold, be strong, be proud of what you've accomplished in a short space of time by harnessing the creativity of the people in America to do amazing things. I mean, to go to the moon, to fly to the moon and do the other things, you know, not because they were easy, but because they were hard. And get back to that. Get back to American exceptionalism. The world wants that and needs it, because I don't want Russia running the place. I don't want China running the place. Thank you. Thank you, America, really, for coming back.
Well, we can thank Trump supporters for putting this incredible individual into the White House, who said, if you're going to be thinking anyway, you might as well think big.
Think big, exactly.
Well, it is such an honor to talk to you today, Brian, and I'd be happy to have updates as they're...
Let's just, okay, there we go.
Oh, there's your view.
That's my flag.
There's your flag on your balcony.
And that's Tel Aviv. This is the sort of suburbs of Tel Aviv. Yeah. There's a chimney in the distance. I can't point to it. There's it'll be hard to see. But yeah, this is my neighborhood. My kids go to school down the road. They're going to be... And you know, this is what we build here. This is massive building.
It's beautiful.
And that's it.
It's beautiful. And all of this, in Jerusalem, it's Jerusalem stone. In Tel Aviv, they don't have that building code?
No, well, we have we have another... But, you know, everything, you can see the color, and especially this is sunset. This is a beautiful time. But everything is done in a nice, sympathetic style. I think we've really settled on a way to build here that matches what we are. Some places we have taller buildings. I mean, behind us, you know, right in the center of Tel Aviv, it's all tall buildings.
And what you are is indigenous. We're
indigenous. Everything about us grew up here. Israel, Judaism are linked. You cannot separate the two. 600 times we talk about Jerusalem in the Bible. We are not, and I tell you, that bit Judea and Samaria, the road that runs down it, the road of the patriarchs, it's called Route 60 today. You drive along it, and if you have even the most rudimentary knowledge of the Bible, every single road sign will mean something to you. Shiloh, Beit El, every single place something happened. And that's in the heart of what they call the West Bank. It's the heart of somewhere somebody says that we shouldn't be there, that we're illegal occupiers. Right. What utter nonsense. Yeah. No, the place was occupied by Islam for 1,400 years. Thank you very much. Well, 700 years. And we got it back. And I tell you, this is my warning to America and more to Europe, actually. Europe's closer. This is what I'll end on.
Okay.
Israel is what happens if you lose your country to jihad and then you have to fight for 1,000 years to get it back. Europe is on the verge of losing itself to Islam. And it might take them 1,000 years if they lose it to get it back. And they'll call themselves Indigenous British or Indigenous French one day. We're Indigenous Jews. And it doesn't matter if my genes spent a few years in South Africa or Russia or Poland or all of that stuff. We Jews have to do two things. We have to decolonize ourselves. We have to say we no longer live in the shtetl in Poland. That's why I'm not such a fan of the black hats and the coats. But that's not who we are. That's not part of us. That's colonized thinking. That's when we were colonized. We need to decolonize, and that's what some of us are doing here. And that's the last thing, very last thing. This will give you the hope. Okay, the Palestinian Arabs, such as they are fighting the exact perfect war to drive out a colonial invasion. The trouble is, we are not colonial invaders. We are home. It won't work. They're fighting exactly how you would get the British out of India or the British out of Israel or the French out of Algeria. That's how they're fighting. Yeah. It's not working because there isn't a price high enough they can extract from us that will make us say, no, we're done now. We can leave Jerusalem. It's not going to happen. Never.
That's a great point, and that is very, very hopeful. So,
yeah,
Brian, thank you so much for your point of view, your words of wisdom, and just your story, Israel's story, the Jewish story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us today.